There comes a moment in life when the world around you feels different. Not completely still, yet not in chaos either. It's as if something underneath the surface is quietly rearranging itself. The conversations that once lit you up now feel strangely hollow. The goals you once chased with burning passion have lost their flavor. And deep down, you sense that something is shifting, though you can't quite put it into words. In the language of quantum physics, it's like the state of superposition, a particle existing in multiple possibilities at once, just before it decides on a single reality. It's that mysterious in-between, where nothing seems final. And yet, everything is possible in your life. This is not an empty pause, it's a threshold. A doorway that doesn't just open into a new set of circumstances, it opens into a new version of you, vibrating at a higher frequency than the one who brought you this far. Most people, when they arrive here, get uneasy. The mind, trained to measure progress by constant doing, whispers, "Something's wrong. You're standing still." But what if that stillness is not the enemy? What if it is the fertile ground where the roots of your next chapter are growing? Invisible, but unstoppable. Just as a seed must dissolve before it sprouts, there is a dismantling that happens inside of you before your quantum leap arrives. This in-between has a feeling all its own. It's like standing on a shoreline at dawn. The tide has gone out, and for a moment, the beach is quiet. You can see the imprints of where the water has been, but you can also sense it's gathering itself far out at sea. It's not retreating forever, it's building strength for the next wave. Right now, that's you. You are in that gathering phase. What once anchored you no longer holds the same weight. Old routines, familiar stories, even pieces of your identity, things that once defined you are beginning to loosen their grip. And while part of you wants to cling to them, there's another part, quieter but stronger, that knows they don't belong to where you're going. I've seen it in my own life, and in the lives of those I've worked with. When you stop fighting this space, when you lean into it instead of trying to fill it with noise, the shift happens faster. The stillness becomes a bridge, carrying you to the frequency you've been calling in without forcing it. You don't have to wrestle the future into existence, because in the quantum field, your future already exists. Your task is to align with it. And alignment is never born from frantic effort. It comes from resonance, from breathing into the moment you're in and letting yourself be reshaped by it. Think of an orchestra before the first note is played. The quiet in the room isn't absence. It's anticipation. It's the space where every instrument tunes itself, so the music can begin in perfect harmony. That's where you are right now. You are tuning, and yes, it can feel uncertain. The ego will tell you that without action, without proof, you're falling behind. But the deeper truth is this: in the realm of consciousness, the most profound transformations happen silently. They happen when you've stopped thrashing against the current and allowed it to carry you toward a greater ocean. If you can meet this moment without demanding that it look like progress, you will begin to feel a subtle but powerful change. A softening, a lightness in your chest, an almost imperceptible knowing that you're already on the other side. This is the elegance of a quantum leap. It rarely comes with fireworks. More often, it arrives like the turning of a season, gradual, seamless, inevitable. So if you find yourself in this strange, quiet space, don't mistake it for nothingness. It is not the absence of life. It is the rearranging of life at a level so deep your conscious mind can't yet see it. Trust it. Let it do its work. And when the wave comes in, and it will, you'll be ready to step into it. Not as the person you've been, but as the person you were always becoming. Because the truth is, you are not waiting for the leap. The leap is waiting for you. And the moment you surrender to this stillness, you'll realize you've already begun. 1. The phase of frequency mismatch. There is a subtle kind of dissonance that seeps in when your soul begins to move at a different rhythm than the world around you. It's not the loud kind of conflict that shouts for attention. It's quieter, more insistent. You wake up, and the conversations you've had for years suddenly feel like they belong to someone else's life. The work you've done 1,000 times, the routines you've carried out, without thinking, they all start to feel foreign. Like trying to slip into a coat that once fit perfectly but now feels too tight across the shoulders. This is what happens when your inner frequency rises, before your external reality has caught up. You are vibrating with a higher truth, a clearer sense of what you're meant for. But the people, places, and patterns that surround you are still aligned with the older version of you. The mismatch can create tension, not because anything is wrong with you or with them, but because you no longer resonate in the same way. It's like a radio tuned to a new station, but still sitting in a room where everyone else is hearing the static of an old broadcast. In these moments, the temptation is to blame yourself or to push harder to make things work. You might think, if I just try a little more, I can fit back into this space. But the truth is, the discomfort is a signpost, not a mistake. It's pointing to the fact that the old container can no longer hold the new you. Imagine trying to pour a larger river into the same narrow channel. It would overflow, not because the river is wrong, but because it has grown beyond the boundaries that once shaped it. When this happens, it can feel like loss. You might grieve the easy familiarity of the old ways, the connections that used to feel warm, but now feel out of sync. And that grief is natural. It's the echo of a chapter closing, but beneath that grief is the quiet certainty that you're being prepared for something bigger. You see, the phase of frequency mismatch is not about fixing the old, it's about allowing the old to release you. It's like being a bird whose wings have grown strong while still standing inside a cage. The door might not have opened yet, but your wings know their purpose. The cage isn't a prison anymore. It's just the place you used to call home. And one day soon, you'll realize the door has been open the whole time. And here's the most important thing to remember. The tension you feel isn't here to punish you. It's here to stretch you. It's the friction that sparks the fire of transformation. Without it, you might never notice that you've outgrown where you are. It's the same way a tree will crack its pot when the roots have grown too wide. The breaking is not the end of the tree. It's the beginning of its expansion into greater soil. So when the people around you seem distant, or the familiar feels stale, don't rush to patch the gap. Let the gap exist. Let the mismatch speak to you. It is telling you that you are in motion, that your inner being is already stepping into a higher field of life. And though the outer world will take time to reflect this, it will. Reality always recalibrates to match the energy you have truly claimed. You are not broken in this space. You are simply between frequencies, no longer who you were, not yet fully anchored in who you're becoming. And the beauty of this in-between is that it is rich with possibility. Every moment you choose to honor the truth of your new vibration, even when the old world still surrounds you, you are building the bridge into your next reality. So breathe. Resist the urge to rush. The outer will follow the inner, it always does. And when it does, you'll look back on this phase with a kind of tenderness, knowing it was the quiet, uneasy season that carried you across the threshold of your becoming. 2. The stillness. As the universe's loading screen, there is a peculiar stillness that arrives before life makes its next great move on your behalf. At first, it can feel unnerving, like you've been dropped into a pause that stretches longer than you expected. You look around, waiting for something to happen. And when nothing does, the mind begins to spin its stories. Why is nothing changing? Did I take a wrong turn? Has the universe forgotten me? But I want you to see this space differently. Imagine you're sitting in front of a screen, watching a quiet image and a slow-moving bar, the kind you see when something important is loading. You can't yet touch the final product, but the system is working quietly, invisibly gathering all the pieces it needs so that when it's ready, the experience will be seamless. That's what this stillness really is. It's not delay. It's alignment. The energy of your life is reconfiguring, moving pieces you cannot yet see, adjusting pathways, shifting connections. Just because your senses can't measure the activity doesn't mean nothing is happening. In fact, in the quantum field, the most profound changes are the ones that occur before there's any physical evidence. Think of a bow being drawn back. To the untrained eye, the arrow isn't moving forward. It's being pulled away from its target. But that pull, that tension, is the very thing that gives it power. The stillness you are in now is the draw of the bow. Every moment you remain here and trust, the more force and accuracy your leap will have when it comes. This is not a time to panic or to scramble for proof. It's a time to allow the process to complete itself. If you dig up a seed every few days to see if it's sprouting, you disturb its growth. But if you trust the darkness of the soil, something far stronger will emerge when the time is right. The stillness is your soil. And yes, it may feel lonely. Yes, it may feel like you're not moving at all. But beneath that quiet surface, roots are forming deep, intricate, and ready to sustain what you've been calling into your life. I've been through these pauses myself, and I know how the mind tries to make them mean something they don't. It whispers that you're falling behind, that everyone else is rushing ahead while you sit here in the quiet. But those who rush are often running in circles. You are not here to circle back to where you've been. You are here to move forward in a way that cannot be undone. When you treat the stillness as a friend rather than an enemy, something shifts. You begin to notice its richness. You hear thoughts you couldn't hear when life was loud. You feel truths in your body that were drowned out by constant motion. The quiet becomes a mirror, showing you where your energy has been scattered and how it might come home to itself. In this space, you are being tuned. Like a musician adjusting their instrument before a performance, the universe is making sure you are in harmony with the reality you've asked for. If you were to leap before this tuning is complete, you might find yourself in the right place, but unable to play the right notes. The stillness is not there to punish you. It's there to ensure that when your moment comes, you will be ready to inhabit it fully. You might feel tempted to fill the silence with distractions, to create noise so you can feel productive. But remember, productivity isn't always about visible action. Sometimes it's about making space. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to hold steady and trust the unseen work being done on your behalf. And here's the quiet truth I've learned. The loading screen always fades. The bowstring always releases. The soil always cracks to let the sprout through. The question is not when it will happen, but how you will meet it when it does. Will you be frantic and uncertain because you never learned to rest in the quiet, or will you be grounded, steady, and ready to step into what's been prepared for you? This pause you are in, it's not the end of your story. It's the moment the orchestra takes its breath before the music begins. It's the inhale before the exhale that changes everything. And if you can meet it with patience, with trust, and with a soft openness, you'll discover that the stillness was never empty at all. It was full overflowing, even with the life that's about to meet you. 3. The quiet shift. One of the most surprising truths about transformation is how unremarkable it can appear from the outside. We grow up, expecting great change to announce itself with fanfare, with a rush of adrenaline, a visible milestone, or some unmistakable sign that we've arrived. But the kind of shift that truly changes you at the core, the kind that rewrites who you are being in the world, often moves in silence. It happens slowly enough that you might not even notice it at first. And then, one day, you wake up and something is different. There's a calm where fear used to live. The weight of old worries has slipped quietly from your shoulders without ceremony. A thought that once kept you up at night now passes through your mind like a cloud that no longer has a storm to carry. This is the essence of a quantum leap. It isn't about forcing yourself into a new life. It's about becoming the kind of person for whom that new life feels natural. The shift is so complete, so embedded in your being, that there's no effort left to maintain it. You simply are. It's like finally exhaling after holding your breath for years and realizing you didn't even know you were tense until you let go. I remember a time in my life when I was chasing proof that I had changed. I thought I needed someone else to see it, to acknowledge it, to confirm it for me. But the day it truly happened, there was no audience. I just found myself in a familiar situation that used to trigger fear and shame, and I didn't flinch. My body stayed open. My mind stayed steady. In that quiet moment, I knew I had crossed the threshold. Even though nothing dramatic had occurred, it's like the turning of seasons. There isn't a single day when summer becomes autumn. There's a slow blending of colors, a subtle change in the air. You don't notice it until one morning you step outside, and the light has shifted. The breeze carries a new edge, and you realize you're already living in a different chapter. The same is true for the inner seasons of our lives. The loud transformations, the job changes, the moves, the endings are easy to see. But the deeper transformation happens when your identity shifts so fully that the old patterns no longer fit. Not because you're fighting them, but because they have no place in the person you've become. You'll know you've reached this stage when you stop thinking about it so much. You don't replay the past or measure the distance you've traveled. You simply live from the new frequency. The way a healed bone doesn't ache every day, it just holds you without effort. That's the quiet magic, the absence of struggle, the presence of ease. This can feel strange at first. When you've spent years defining yourself by the battles you've fought, the absence of conflict might feel like emptiness. But it's not emptiness, it's space. It's room for joy, for rest, for a deeper connection with life. And here's what I've learned. The quiet shift lasts because it's not built on adrenaline or willpower. Those fade. Instead, it's built on a gradual rewiring of who you believe yourself to be. In the quantum sense, you've stabilized in a new orbit. You're no longer bouncing between the old frequency and the new. You've locked into the higher one, and it holds you naturally. You may not get applause for this. No one may notice except you. But in the quiet of your own heart, you'll feel the difference. You'll see it in the way you respond to the unexpected with grace instead of fear, with curiosity instead of defense. You'll feel it in the way you no longer chase what used to consume you, because it simply doesn't matter anymore. So if your transformation doesn't come with fireworks, don't doubt it. The deepest shifts rarely do. They arrive like dawn, no sudden light switch. Just a gradual brightening until the world is fully awake, and you realize you've been standing in daylight without even noticing the moment it began. This is the kind of change that lasts a lifetime, not because you guard it fiercely, but because it's who you are now, and once you've become it, there is no going back. 4. Letting go to receive. There's a moment in every deep transformation when you realize you cannot carry it all with you. Not everything you've collected along the way can follow you into where you're going. It's not because those things were bad, or because they never mattered. Many of them shaped you, comforted you, gave you purpose for a season. But seasons change. And the truth is, you cannot step fully into the frequency of the new while holding on to the noise and instability of the old. Letting go is rarely neat. It doesn't always happen in one decisive act. More often, it's a slow unthreading, a familiar conversation you stop engaging in, a habit you no longer feed with your attention, a belief you've carried for decades that one day simply feels too small to fit who you are becoming. Each release may seem insignificant on its own, but together, they create the spaciousness for what's next. I've learned the hard way that clinging to the old doesn't protect you, it weighs you down. It's like trying to cross a bridge while dragging a suitcase full of stones. Each stone may have a story, a memory, a piece of your identity attached to it. You might tell yourself you'll sort through them later, but until you set them down, you can't walk with the freedom your next chapter requires. There's a quiet courage in this process. Letting go is not about rejecting your past. It's about honoring it enough to let it rest. You can thank the people, the experiences, the beliefs for what they gave you, and still release them. In doing so, you acknowledge that their role is complete, and your soul is calling you forward. The challenge is that the mind often equates release with loss. It will try to convince you that by letting go, you're creating emptiness. But in reality, you're creating space. The new frequency you're stepping into cannot anchor itself in a life already filled to the edges. Just as you wouldn't pour fresh water into a cup still holding yesterday's stale tea, you can't fill your life with the vitality of what's ahead if it's still crowded with what's behind. I remember a time when I held on far too long to a version of myself that no longer fit. I thought I was preserving stability, but really, I was keeping myself locked in a loop. The moment I began to release, not in anger, but with a kind of gentle acceptance, life began to open in ways I couldn't have orchestrated. It was as if the act of letting go sent a signal to the universe. I'm ready. I trust what's next more than I fear what I'm leaving behind. Letting go is an act of trust, but it's also an act of alignment. When you put down what no longer resonates, you are declaring to yourself and to the field around you that you're ready to meet the energy of your future without interference. The quantum field responds not to your longing, but to your vibration, and holding on to what's incompatible with your new frequency sends a mixed signal like trying to tune a radio to two stations at once. The result is static. Release clears the signal. Sometimes the release is external, leaving a job, ending a relationship, moving away from a place that's kept you small. Other times, it's internal, surrendering the belief that you're not worthy, letting go of the need to prove yourself, setting down the expectation that things must look a certain way before you can feel at peace. Both kinds of release are equally powerful, and both require the same willingness to loosen your grip. And here's something I've come to know deeply. What's meant for you does not require you to fight to hold it. When something is truly aligned, it fits without strain. It remains not because you clutch it tightly, but because it's part of the fabric of who you are now. The things that fall away in this process aren't punishments. They're simply not compatible with where you're headed. Letting go can feel like stepping into a dark hallway between two rooms, the one you've left and the one you haven't entered yet. But if you can walk that hallway without rushing, you'll discover it's not empty at all. It's alive with possibility, with a subtle hum that tells you life is rearranging itself for your arrival. So, as you stand here on the edge of your new frequency, ask yourself, what am I still holding that belongs to the old world? What weight can I set down so I can step forward with an open hand? Because in the end, the space you create by letting go is the same space into which your new life will pour. And when it comes, you'll see that release was never about losing. It was always about making room to receive. 5. Regulating emotions as your energetic compass. There's a certain turbulence that arrives when you are between two worlds. One foot in the life you've known, the other reaching for a reality that hasn't fully anchored yet. In this space, emotions tend to swell and crash like waves. One moment you might feel a rush of hope so strong it fills your chest, and the next, doubt creeps in, whispering that you've imagined the whole thing. This is not failure. This is the natural rhythm of transition. Think of a boat moving from one current to another. The water churns as the two streams meet, creating ripples and swells that were never there before. Your emotions are those waters. They are simply telling you you're in motion. You're crossing into something new. We're conditioned to see emotional swings as instability, something to fix or suppress. But emotions, when understood, are messengers. They are your body's way of translating the energetic shifts happening beneath the surface. When you're moving into a higher frequency, your nervous system and your heart need time to adjust. They are like instruments being tuned. There will be moments when the sound feels sharp or flat before it lands in harmony. The key is learning to hold steady in the middle of that tuning process, not getting swept away by the highs, not drowning in the lows. It's not about numbing yourself. It's about becoming the calm center in the storm, the place where you can observe the movement without losing your grounding. This doesn't mean you won't feel deeply, you will. In fact, the closer you get to full alignment, the more amplified your feelings can become. Joy can feel like sunlight breaking through after a long winter. Fear can feel like a shadow suddenly crossing your path. But the presence of both doesn't mean you're off course. It means you're exactly where you should be. You're navigating the passage between two frequencies, and your emotional landscape is reflecting that process. When you can meet both joy and fear with the same open hand, you step into a different kind of power. You stop chasing the highs as proof you're on the right path. You stop treating the lows as evidence you failed. Instead, you see them both as signals, data points on your inner compass. They show you where your attention is resting, where your energy is leaning. And with that awareness, you can gently guide yourself back into balance. I've been through times when my emotions swung so wildly, I felt like a stranger in my own skin. In the past, I would have clung desperately to the good days and tried to banish the bad ones. But over time, I learned that resisting the lows only made them last longer, and clinging to the highs only made them slip away faster. The real freedom came when I stopped labeling my feelings as good or bad, right or wrong, and began to treat them as movement, like the wind changing direction. When a strong wind comes, you don't curse it for blowing. You adjust your sails. In the same way, your emotions are the wind in your inner world. They can carry you if you learn how to work with them, but they can knock you off course if you fight them blindly. One of the simplest yet most profound practices I've found is to pause and notice, what is this feeling trying to show me? Not in a way that invites overthinking or judgment, but as a way of listening. Often, the answer isn't dramatic. It might just be that you need rest, or that something in your environment is pulling you back toward an old frequency. Awareness gives you choice, and choice is the very thing that stabilizes your energy. This middle space between realities is not about perfection. It's about building the kind of steadiness that can hold you no matter what the weather is doing. When you become the steady ground inside yourself, you can walk through any storm without being blown off course. And here's the beauty of it. As you continue to hold that neutrality, welcoming the highs without clinging, meeting the lows without fear, you'll notice the emotional waves start to settle. The water evens out, and without even realizing it, you've crossed fully into the new current. The inner compass that once flickered wildly is now pointing true north, and you can feel it in the quiet strength of your own heart. So don't be discouraged by the fluctuations. They're not a sign you're failing. They're proof you're moving. Trust your compass, and remember that the storm isn't there to throw you off. It's there to teach you how to steer. 6. The final test. There comes a point in every deep transformation when life circles back and places something familiar in front of you. It might be an old situation you thought you'd outgrown, a person who once stirred strong emotions in you, or a feeling you haven't had in years: fear, anger, shame, or even longing. At first, you might feel frustrated. Why is this showing up again? I thought I was past this. But the return of these old patterns is not a sign of failure. It's not the universe trying to trip you up. It's an invitation, a chance to stand in the same place you once stood, and this time, to choose differently. Think of it like a mirror being held up to you, not to trap you in your reflection, but to show you the contrast between who you were and who you have become. Life is giving you a moment to see your growth in action, not just in theory. When these moments arrive, your body may remember the old reaction. The same trigger might spark the same familiar rush of emotion, But here's the difference. Now you have awareness. You can feel the pull of the old without automatically following it. You can pause, breathe, and respond from the steadiness of your new self. That pause is everything. It's the space where transformation becomes real. I've had these final tests appear when I least expected them. There were times when I thought I had mastered a lesson, only to find myself face to face with the very situation that once undid me. In the past, I would have seen this as proof that nothing had changed. But I've learned to recognize it for what it truly is, a closing of the loop. You are not back at the beginning. You are at the summit, looking down on the path you once had to climb in the dark. And sometimes, the test isn't dramatic at all. It can be as subtle as someone using a tone of voice that once made you defensive, and realizing you no longer feel the need to defend yourself, or walking into a place that used to make you anxious and noticing your body feels calm. It's in these small, quiet victories that you see the true depth of your evolution. The final test is not about proving your worthiness. You have nothing to prove. It's about affirming your alignment. In the quantum sense, it's the moment when the old frequency and the new frequency overlap one last time. Both are available to you, and you get to decide which one you will inhabit. When you meet the old with the presence of the new, something profound happens. You collapse the possibility of slipping back into who you were. The old pattern loses its grip because you've shown through action, not just intention, that you no longer feed it. From that moment forward, it becomes harder and harder for life to pull you back into a reality that no longer matches your vibration. It's important to approach these moments with compassion for yourself. If you stumble, it doesn't mean you've lost your progress. Every choice you make from awareness, even if it's not perfect, strengthens your connection to the version of you you're becoming. And with each choice, the old pattern fades a little more. I like to think of the final test as a rite of passage. It's life's way of saying, I know you're ready. Let's give you one more chance to see it for yourself. There is no punishment here, only opportunity. It's a way for you to feel, in your bones, the difference between living in survival and living in alignment. So when the old returns, don't shrink away from it. Meet it with the calm confidence of someone who knows they've changed. Let your actions speak the truth of your transformation. And when you walk away from that moment, whether it's a conversation, a choice, or simply a feeling that you no longer let define you, you'll feel something shift. A quiet certainty will settle in your chest. You'll know you've passed through the doorway into a life that no longer requires you to fight your way forward. And perhaps that's the most beautiful part, realizing that the final test isn't about the test at all. It's about you recognizing, without a doubt, that you've already become the person you were working so hard to be. 7. The power of presence. There is a quiet kind of strength that rises when you stop searching for proof that your life is changing and simply begin to live as though it already has. It's not the loud, restless energy of trying to make something happen, nor the anxious scanning of the horizon for signs. It's the still, steady hum of being here fully, without clinging to what was or straining toward what might be. When you rest in presence, you align with the frequency of the life you've been moving toward all along. The shift is subtle, but unmistakable. Your attention softens. The constant mental calculations, am I there yet? Is this working, start to dissolve? And in that spaciousness, you find something even greater than answers. You find yourself. In the past, I used to live in a kind of mental waiting room, always rehearsing the future, always scanning for the next step, always measuring how far I had left to go. Even moments of joy were tinged with the thought that they were just stepping stones, not the destination. But what I didn't understand then is that the universe doesn't need convincing. It doesn't respond to our words nearly as much as it responds to our state of being. And when your state of being says, I am already home, life reflects that truth with an ease you can't fake. Think of it like tuning a radio. You can't demand that the station play the song you want while your dial is set to static. The music comes through only when you match the exact frequency. In the same way, presence is the act of turning the dial all the way into alignment with the reality you desire, not tomorrow, not when conditions change, but now. The beauty of presence is that it makes no promises of perfection. It doesn't mean your mind will never wander, or that you'll never feel longing or doubt again. But in presence, those moments lose their power to pull you out of yourself. They pass through like clouds in a vast sky, and you remain the sky unchanged by the weather. There's also a tenderness to it. When you are fully here, even the smallest details become luminous. The sound of your breath in the morning, the way sunlight falls across your table, the warmth of holding your own hands when no one else is watching. These moments stop being fillers between important events and become the very fabric of your life. You realize that you are no longer rushing toward your life, you are living it. In quantum terms, presence collapses all probabilities into the one you are embodying right now. It's the moment you stop oscillating between not yet and almost, and simply occupy the space of it is. And from that space, the outer world begins to reconfigure. Not because you forced it to, but because reality is compelled to match the vibration you're holding. This is why trying to prove your worth or readiness to the universe never works the way you hope. The effort itself carries the frequency of lack, of I don't yet have what I want. And the universe, being a perfect mirror, will faithfully reflect that back. But when you drop the chase, when you step out of the role of seeker and into the role of dweller, someone who inhabits their desired life as if it's already here, you shift the entire equation. I've witnessed this in my own life, in ways that still humble me. The opportunities that once felt out of reach began arriving without my pursuit. The relationships that felt strained began to soften and harmonize. Even my inner world, once filled with a constant undercurrent of tension, became more like a still lake, capable of reflecting beauty without distortion. None of this happened because I finally did enough. It happened because I stopped trying to prove anything. And in that release, I gave life permission to meet me where I already stood. Presence is not passive. It's the most active engagement you can have with reality. But it's not activity in the sense of constant doing. It's the activity of being awake, of noticing without judgment, of responding from the wholeness of now. And in that state, you become magnetic, not because you're trying to draw anything in, but because everything that resonates with you can finally recognize where to find you. If you ever doubt this, try an experiment. For just one day, live as though the change you've been longing for is already complete. Speak from that place. Move from that place. Rest in that place. Notice how your energy changes and how the world subtly changes in response. You might find that the gap you've been trying to cross isn't a gap at all. It was only the mind's illusion, and you were already on the other side. In the end, the power of presence is not in what it attracts, though it will inevitably attract more than you imagined. Its true power is in the way it frees you from the exhausting chase, from the need to prove or perform. It anchors you in the only moment that has ever truly existed, the one you're in now. And when you live here, fully, the universe can do nothing else but meet you here. 2.8. The principle of instant resonance. In the quiet elegance of quantum physics, there is something called a quantum leap. It's not a slow climb, not a step-by-step ascent. An electron doesn't inch its way to a higher orbit. It jumps instantly the moment it reaches the exact energy threshold. No in-between. No halfway point. 1 second it's here, and the next, it's simply there. Your inner transformation works in much the same way. We're taught to believe that change must be slow, linear, and earned through constant grind. But there are moments, rare, luminous moments, when all the scattered pieces suddenly click into place. When the months or years of inner work seem to dissolve into one instant of clarity, and you are no longer the person you were the moment before. It's not magic in the sense of something outside you stepping in. It's resonance. All the times you've chosen alignment. All the times you've practiced presence. All the times you've shed what no longer fit, they accumulate like drops filling a cup. And then, without warning, the cup overflows. You reach the energetic threshold where your new state becomes inevitable. I've experienced this in my own life in ways that still take my breath away. There were struggles I thought would take years to overcome. Patterns I assumed would loosen their grip only after endless effort. And yet, there came a morning when I woke up and felt undone. Not because I had conquered anything in the dramatic sense, but because I no longer lived at the frequency where those patterns could survive. The leap had happened, quietly, completely. This is the mystery of instant resonance. It doesn't follow the rules of the mind. The mind likes timelines, charts, and gradual improvement. But resonance belongs to the heart and the field of energy you live in. It's like tuning a string on an instrument. You can turn the pegs slowly, hearing the sound shift little by little. And then there's that one final adjustment where the note snaps into perfect pitch. In that moment, all the dissonance disappears. It's also why you can work for months, trying to force an outcome, and still feel stuck because action taken from misalignment only reinforces the gap. But a single moment of complete inner coherence when your thoughts, feelings, and energy are all moving in the same direction can do what years of scattered effort cannot. That's the jump. That's the instant where you stop trying and start being. Sometimes, this leap comes disguised as surrender. You finally stop wrestling with the problem, not out of defeat, but because you realize you don't need to win a battle that was never yours to begin with. You release the tension, the striving, the need to prove, and in that softening, the leap happens on its own. It's almost unfair how simple it feels after all the struggle. Like the river that stops pushing against the dam only to discover the gate has been open all along. And here's the beautiful paradox. While the leap itself is instantaneous, it is also the sum of every moment that came before. Every conscious breath, every act of choosing love over fear, every time you dared to imagine a better reality. Those moments were never wasted. They were charging your field, building the energy needed for the shift. When the leap comes, it's not sudden in truth. It's simply the visible arrival of something that's been unfolding in the unseen for a long time. If you've been in the space between still working, still hoping, still wondering why the change hasn't landed yet, remember the electron. It doesn't hesitate. It doesn't strain. It simply waits for the exact resonance, and then it moves without resistance. Your leap will be like that. Not forced, not delayed, but inevitable when the energy is right. So rather than obsessing over how much longer it will take, tend to your frequency. Live as if you are already in the reality you desire. Notice the small ways you can align today with your thoughts, with your emotions, with the way you treat yourself and others. The leap isn't something you chase. It's something you meet by becoming a match for it. And when it comes, when you feel the shift not just in your mind, but in your bones, you'll understand why all the waiting was worth it. Because in that instant, you're not climbing toward your new life anymore. You're already standing in it. And there's no going back. 9. Making space for the new. There comes a moment in every deep transformation when something leaves your life. It might be a relationship, a career, a sense of identity, or even an old dream that once felt essential. And in the rawness of that absence, the first instinct is often to reach back, grasping for what was, trying to stitch the past back together. You think, if I could just get it back, I'd feel whole again. But here's the quiet truth. Life taught me what leaves isn't punishment, and what stays gone isn't failure. The empty space it leaves behind isn't a wound to patch, it's fertile ground. It's the universe clearing the field, making room for seeds that could never grow in the crowded soil of your old life. I've been in that space before, the one that feels like standing in a half-empty room, where the furniture has been moved out but nothing has yet been moved in. At first, the echo of that emptiness feels unbearable. Your mind rushes to fill it, to replace what's gone with something, anything, just to quiet the discomfort. But emptiness has its own wisdom. It asks you to stay long enough to notice the air, to feel the possibilities stretching out around you. When you stop asking, "How do I get back what I lost?" and start asking, "What is this space preparing me for?" your energy changes. You shift from clinging to allowing, from scarcity to receptivity. And in that shift, the new has permission to enter. You see, energy works like breath. If you never exhale fully, there's no room for the next inhale. Loss, in its higher truth, is simply an exhale, making way for the next breath of life to fill you. Sometimes the new doesn't arrive with fanfare. It might appear quietly, a conversation that stirs something alive in you, a sudden idea that lights up your imagination, a small opportunity that feels almost too simple to be significant. But those are the first shoots breaking through the soil. You don't dig them up to check if they're growing. You water them, and you give them sunlight. You trust the process. I've also learned that what fills the space is a direct match to the energy you hold while waiting. If you fill the gap with bitterness, regret, or fear, you'll likely draw in experiences that mirror that heaviness. But if you hold the space with curiosity, openness, and a quiet trust in life's timing, you'll notice that the new begins to arrive in forms far better suited to who you are now, not who you were when you lost what you lost. And here's something important. Making space for the new doesn't mean rushing to redesign your life overnight. It means living inside the openness without demanding instant resolution. It means trusting that the universe understands the architecture of your becoming, even when you don't. When I look back, I see how the most beautiful chapters of my life began in the most uncomfortable pauses. A friendship that ended made room for a deeper connection I couldn't have imagined. A career door closing pushed me toward work that felt like a calling rather than a job. Even heartbreaks, those deep fractures, eventually became the open windows through which light returned. So if you are here now, in that space between what's gone and what's yet to arrive, I want to say this: you are not empty. You are available. The absence you feel is not a void to be feared, but a vessel ready to be filled with something that belongs wholly to your next chapter. Hold the space gently. Let it breathe. Let it whisper to you about what's possible. And when the new comes, and it will, you'll recognize it not because it looks like what you lost, but because it feels like home to the person you've become. 10. Anchoring the frequency. There's a quiet moment after the breakthrough. You've felt it before when something shifts inside you, when the old patterns no longer fit, when you sense you've touched a higher, cleaner note in the song of your life. And yet, the days after that moment can feel uncertain. You wonder, how do I stay here? How do I keep from sliding back? Anchoring a new frequency is not about clinging to it with white-knuckled fear, as if it might vanish the moment you look away. It's about letting it settle into you the way morning light seeps into a room slowly, gently, until it feels like it's always been there. This is where trust comes in. Not the brittle kind of trust that depends on constant proof, but the deep, lived-in trust that says, I don't need to see the whole road to keep walking it. In the early days of a frequency shift, the pull of the old life can be surprisingly strong. Your body remembers the comfort of familiar habits. Your mind replays the loops of old beliefs. People from your past may invite you intentionally or not back into roles you've already outgrown. Anchoring means recognizing these invitations for what they are: echoes of a life you no longer inhabit. You don't have to fight them or fear them. You simply don't answer the door. For me, this anchoring phase has always been about small, consistent choices, rather than dramatic gestures. It's not about proclaiming to the world that you've changed. It's about living in a way that quietly affirms it. If your old self would have rushed to fix, control, or prove something, your new self might pause instead. Breathe, and let the moment unfold. If your old self would have settled for less, your new self waits for what aligns. These micro-decisions are like laying bricks one after another until the foundation of your new frequency is unshakable. One thing I've learned is that you can't anchor a frequency by constantly testing it. If you keep checking, am I still there? Am I still different? You're like a plant that keeps being pulled from the soil to see if it's growing. True integration happens when you stop measuring and start living. You trust that the work is happening beneath the surface, even if you can't see it yet. Anchoring also asks you to release the drama of constant highs. You don't have to feel ecstatic every moment to know you're in alignment. In fact, the real sign you've anchored a new frequency is when it feels normal when calm. Clarity and self-respect are your baseline, not fleeting peaks. The extraordinary becomes ordinary, not because it's lost its magic, but because it's woven into the fabric of your everyday life. There will be days when the old patterns tap on your shoulder. Something stressful happens, and you're tempted to react the way you used to. Someone triggers a memory, and the old emotional charge tries to reignite. Anchoring doesn't mean you never feel those pulls. It means you notice them without moving your roots. You might sway, but you don't uproot yourself. I think of it like learning to breathe underwater. At first, it feels impossible. You keep wanting to surface for air, but slowly, your body adapts. Your lungs trust the process, and the water becomes a place you can inhabit without panic. Similarly, the more time you spend in your new frequency without rushing back to the surface of the old, the more natural it becomes. And perhaps most importantly, anchoring is an act of devotion to yourself, to the life you're creating, to the truth you've glimpsed. It's saying, I will not abandon the me I have worked so hard to become, even when the road feels quiet, even when no one else notices, even when it would be easier to slip into what's familiar. Because here's the truth. Stability in a new frequency isn't about controlling your environment. It's about knowing that whatever happens around you, you don't have to change your song. You've tuned your instrument differently now. And no matter what music the world plays, you carry your own note. One day, without realizing it, you'll wake up and see that what once felt like a breakthrough now feels like home. Not because you've stopped growing, but because you've rooted so deeply in this version of yourself that leaving it is no longer an option. It simply doesn't occur to you. And that's when you'll know you haven't just visited the new frequency, you live there. The quiet leap. You don't need to wait for a sign written in the sky or a perfect alignment of events for your quantum jump to unfold. The truth is, the version of life you've been longing for isn't some distant dream. It's already breathing in another parallel timeline. And the bridge between here and there is not a forceful sprint, but a gentle, exact alignment. It happens the moment you allow yourself to match the tone of that reality, not by straining toward it, but by softening into it, like tuning an instrument until it vibrates in harmony with the song already being played. You meet it not with frantic effort, but with quiet certainty, and when that match is true, the shift is immediate. No sparks, no thunder, just the seamless click of a lock opening to a key that has been in your pocket all along. I used to think I had to do more to earn that shift, to work harder, heal faster, prove my worth. But I've learned the real power isn't in stacking more actions on top of a restless foundation. It's in becoming the version of yourself who naturally lives in that desired reality. Every thought that aligns with it, every reaction that reflects it, every choice that affirms it is a declaration I am already here. From this moment forward, life becomes less about chasing and more about embodying. You stop asking, when will it happen? And start asking, How would I show up right now if it had already happened? That question changes everything. You carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You move through your day with a steadiness that doesn't need to be convinced. And here's the beautiful thing: when you live as though you're already in the place you've been reaching for, the universe responds in kind. Not because you've manipulated it, but because you've become a perfect match for what you've always desired. It's no longer a matter of if or when. It's the only natural outcome. So let this be your quiet revolution, not a desperate leap, but a calm crossing into a life that has been waiting for you to remember it. Stand in the awareness that you are already in the right place, at the right time, with exactly what you need. And from that grounded knowing, watch how easily the world reshapes itself around you. Because when you choose to live in the frequency of your arrival, the universe can only meet you there, as if it had never been any other way.